Hey, well, welcome to another installment of Gardening and Backyard Projects. I wanted to show you something that I came across I thought was really neat, and it's called the flower tower system. It comes in a bag like this, and you can order them online. I got 2 of them, and it's a really simple contraption. What you get inside is this sheet that's recycling number 5 grade plastic, so it's food grade, and it also comes with these tubes that are going to be the watering system for this plant container and the base. So I'm going to show you the assembly for this. I'm going to talk a little bit about the benefits of the system and just how easy it is to use and what kind of stuff you can grow in here. This is advertised primarily for flowers and making just a nice decorative piece that you can put anywhere outside your home. But you can also use this for things like small tomatoes or strawberries, and that's actually the real reason why I got these, was because I wanted to grow strawberries in an easy, convenient way, and this system really works well for that. So let's go ahead and proceed with the installment for this. Okay, so the side that kind of props up is going to be the interior of the cylinder. And you'll see that there's little butterfly clips here. This is what's going to lock the sides together. So you're just going to kind of gently weave these into the other end to kind of like establish that circular motion that you need for this. And then you're going to start with the middle butterfly tab here. So what you do is you take the butterfly tab and you bring it into the innermost section of the opening on the other side, and the other end of the butterfly tab has to come out through that opening here. So you're just going to kind of have to wedge your fingers in here gently to get it to clip in. There we go, we have one down. And the last one. Now fortunately this is pretty durable plastic, so you can really kind of force a little bit if you need to and it won't break, which is good. And there you go, we got all the tabs put in place. And the side here that has the little grip holes, this is going to be the top. And obviously that's the bottom where the insert holes are located, which we're going to attach to the base. Alright, the next section is going to be the interior watering tube. This comes in segments that are color coded, and it's important to put them in the right order because each one has a different opening size for the watering hole, which means that this is what's going to allow proper distribution of the water when we're putting it into the tube for watering our plants. And just to start, at the base is going to be the simple the black plastic tube. It doesn't have any coloring. It's also the longest piece, and you're going to attach it to the white ended part, which is the first piece. And you're going to make sure that you bring it in until you can't bring it in any further. I can do this for all. So the next one is the blue. Next one is the green. You notice the holes get a little smaller as we go. Next one is the pink. And the last one doesn't have a color, it's black. This is probably the hardest one to get in. Alright, that's our completed tube. The next thing we're going to do is add the watering tube to the base. The part that attaches is the longer end of the black pipe that goes into the hole here. And just insert it in as best you can so that it's got a nice tight grip. There we go. And now all that's left is to insert the actual cover onto the base here. So remember that the grip holes stay on the top. Now you're going to have to fidget with this part a little bit until you get the cylinder to more or less go around the base. So you can just twist it a bit. And then I like to turn this upside down and make sure that the little clips that we saw earlier on the the little clips on the base insert into the holes on the cylinder. And there's a couple of them, so you make sure they go around all the way and make sure that all of them are actually inserted into the slit. There we go. You may notice that the tube isn't like perfectly centered, but that's easy to fix. All you do is just position it with your hands so that it is centered. And that's it. So this is the actual assembly part. Now I'm going to show you guys how to fill this up. Okay, so the next step is to fill up the cylinder. And it's a really good idea to put in some heavy weight underneath, such as garden stones like the ones that I got lying right here. And this will ensure that your cylinder won't tip over with high winds or stuff like that. So you can get these at pretty much any box garden store. And I'm just going to start out by putting on some of these larger stones in the bottom, and then I'm going to fill up about 1.5 inches with the smaller stones. So I got about 3 of those heavier ones. And I'm just going to take a few handfuls of these guys and gently pour them down. So remember, this is about 1.5 inches at most, because you just really want to give a bit of weight to the bottom, but you don't want to take away too much room from the base where the roots of the plants are going to be making their way into. This also allows for good drainage out so that we don't get any overflowing of water as well. So there's 2 bonuses there. Okay, so with the base filled with stones, next thing we're going to do is start topping up with the soil. And you definitely want to use some good quality soil for whatever you're doing. Especially if you're going to be eating it, you want to make sure your vegetation is going to be well nourished. So I'm using a Pro Mix here that comes with mycorrhiza in there, as well as perlite and vermiculite. It's all going to help in the retention of the moisture and good colonization for the root structures of the plants. So I'm just going to take a little bit of soil and try to be as gentle as I can in pouring it down. This will make a bit of a mess. So you want to be doing this outside for sure. And initially I just want to get the soil to kind of fill in the crevices left in by the holes of the stones that we dropped in there. And to help with that, we'll just give it a little bit of a shake. Okay, so I filled this pretty much till just the beginning opening section of the holes. And I don't want to go any further than this because this is where I'm going to start putting in my plants. Okay, so the last part of this really is to position all the plants inside. And I went ahead and already did 2 berry plants. And now there's 5 in each row. And so I don't know if the strawberries are going to root too much. And I know they also spread runners to procreate. So what I decided to do was use rockwool cubes in between the sets so that nothing's going to get in or out, and at the same time there's going to be enough room for root development to occur between the different strawberry plants that are in here. Now it was a little tricky to get them in here because they were a little bigger than I would have liked, but it's what I had available to work with. In addition, the rockwool cubes can later serve possibly as another insert point for additional strawberry plants, because when these guys shoot runners, I can plug one of them in here, pin it down, and then it can spread roots on the inside. Meanwhile, I'm going to put in my 3rd strawberry plant that I've already cleaned up the roots as best as I could and insert it into here. Now this is a bit challenging, so the teeth, you're going to have to kind of like lift them up if the root of your plant is already a little bigger than it really ideally ought to be. And then you kind of have to play with it until you're able to get it fully inserted. And you also want to make sure that by the time you're done, it's angled slightly up, because you don't want this thing dangling right down to the floor. So you're just going to try to be as careful as possible, as much as you can be, inserting the roots into the inside and wedging open these teeth as you need to, using both hands, so that you can make sure that you're not gripping any of the roots on the outside. So yeah, maybe a little trauma for the plant, but with any luck, they'll survive and endure. With some of the other ones, I had to go into the above holes and just play with the roots a little bit so that I could space them out slightly. And then I also had to bring down some fresh soil to keep it in the angled up position that I wanted. Otherwise, it would just droop down if I didn't add additional soil on top. Now with strawberries, to make sure that we don't get rotting of the crown section, we do have to make sure that really only the root is beneath the soil and that the crown is fully exposed out on the outside. So that's about as best as I can do. And I'm just going to try to put a little bit of soil underneath so that it can stay propped up. Now that I've more or less secured it as best as I can, I'm going to drop in more fresh soil on top. In fact, I've already isolated all the holes, so now I'm going to add in enough topsoil to completely fill up to the next section of where we would insert the next row of plants. And again, I'm going to do our best here to try and cover up the top of the roots that we just installed. Another thing that might be handy is to have a long stick like the end of a broom to try and wedge down a little bit. Just put enough pressure so that it's not too loose on the inside, especially to keep the angle correct on the plant. There we go. I'd say that looks pretty good. And now I'm just going to top it up with a little bit more soil before proceeding to the next row. One other thing, I strongly suspect that once we water this, the water might droop down slightly. So what I'm going to do is, before I start the next row, is pour some water down the watering hole that I've already left out sitting, so it's been dechlorinated. And this will hopefully allow the soil to even out fully. And I can actually see it squirting out from the inside on the holes where there isn't actually any soil to soak up the water. So this is good. It's getting good saturation. So it does take a while for the water to come out from the holes near the bottom, and this is part of the process of how it irrigates it in a very slow, even fashion. So it's good. It's a good design. I like it. So I'm going to let that go. And then I'm going to add more water intermittently until I feel that this has got a good enough of a soaking. Okay guys, so this is about as much as I'm going to show you for today, because unfortunately I don't have the time to go through putting in all the plants. But when I do, I'm only going to be able to put up enough to the point of how many plants I have. And right now I don't have enough to actually fill the entire tower. So what I'm going to do is just cap off the section of where I finish up with the plants. But normally what you would be doing is you would be filling up all the plants on all the holes, and then when you get to the top, it's just, you cover it with soil. There's no special enclosure for the top. So all you do is you can plant some 2 to 4 additional plants at the very top, and it'll kind of just decorate it off. And so that's what eventually I'll do with more strawberries. And the very top section, you can actually cover it with a glass or something to prevent things from going inside. Especially actually what I should have done is when I was filling this up with soil, was I should have covered the hole to make sure that nothing went down into the irrigation pipe. So that's something to keep in mind. In addition, when you have these out, wherever strawberries like full light, so I'm going to put it somewhere where there's a lot of lighting. And about every once a week, you want to rotate them 180 degrees so that you get even light distribution for the plants. Also, depending on what you're growing in here, you might want to fertilize the maybe like once a week or once a month, really just kind of gauge how your plants grow. And so you're going to be using a liquid fertilizer that you would put down with the irrigation water and allow that to nurture the plants. And that kind of thing you can pick up at any gardening store or hydroponic store. And the last thing I'll mention is I want this to be sitting a little higher because I don't want things dripping down onto the ground and potentially getting any infections or bugs and things like that. So I'm actually going to prop this up on something that's heavy. And so you can, an example could be something like another pot or vase, and just making sure that it's secure. And I think it looks a little better like that, and also I just like the fact that it's more distant from the ground. Hey guys, so it's been a few days since I transplanted the strawberry plants onto the flower towers. I just wanted to kind of show you what the finished result looks like. And I'd like to say that the strawberries adapted fairly well. I got little stands for the flower towers just to keep the base off the ground and avoid more insects potentially getting onto the plants. And then I weighted them down with some heavy stones because we do get some high winds, and that way you can be sure that's not going to tip over. And if you recall, I only had enough strawberries to fill the tower part way. So what I did was I used some stones, some small stones, to cover up the very top with the soil. And again, just to help keep everything contained and avoid things getting in there. I'm happy also to report that some of the strawberries anyways are growing out their shoots. And this means that I can go with my original plan of grabbing some of the ones that are already developing and plug them into the rockwool cubes that I left positioned. Unfortunately, this is only happening for some of them. I'll have to wait a little bit longer for the other strawberry plants to give out their shoots. And so yeah, I have the two of them set up. I water them about every 2 or 3 days. It does get quite warm. And then what I did is I also just covered the very top with a simple glass, because this way I can ensure that nothing gets inside the watering tube. And there you go. It works out really well. I highly recommend you guys get these. They're easily to transport inside if you need to accommodate a harsher winter. And you can have something like strawberries growing and preparing all year round, so that next year your crop is going to be certain. There you go guys, the flower tower.